The desert sun was melting into the horizon when everything began, turning the sky into this deep red-orange blaze that always reminded me of trouble before it arrived. I lived at the edge of the San Carlos Reservation, just outside the Apache land where the wind carried stories older than fences or borders, and where people knew how to watch without being seen. My nearest neighbor, Tala Nanton, was Apache tall, calm, sharp-eyed, the kind of woman whose silence said more than anyone's loudest sentence. She worked with horses and engines in equal measure, and even though we barely spoke more than a few times in passing, she always stared directly at me, like she was trying to read a map written on my skin. But that evening was different. The air felt tight, like it knew something was coming that the rest of us hadn't caught up to yet. I had a friend visiting from Phoenix, a girl named Marcy, all dyed blonde hair, high-energy laughs, and neon-bright summer clothes that didn't match the dust and grit of the desert at all. She had been flirting with me the whole day, making little comments, brushing her shoulder against mine, and acting like the world revolved only as long as I was paying attention to her. It wasn't serious, just playful, uncomplicated fun. But the desert notices everything, and apparently so did Tala. Marcy didn't waste time. As we stepped out onto the porch to watch the sun go down, she grabbed the collar of my shirt, pulled me close, and pressed her lips to mine quick, bold, sugary sweet, like the cherry lip gloss she'd probably applied 5 minutes earlier. I kissed her back because it felt natural, easy, and because no part of me expected the moment to matter to anyone except the two of us. But then Marcy broke the kiss, giggling, and said, "Your neighbor's staring at you again." I glanced toward the fence, and sure enough, Tala was standing there, arms folded, expression unreadable, eyes sharp enough to cut steel. She didn't look away when I met her gaze. She didn't blink. She didn't move. She just watched, like she'd been waiting for that exact second. Marcy waved at her with this playful, teasing energy, but the gesture just hung in the air, unanswered. Tala didn't wave back. She simply turned away, walked back toward her corral, and vanished behind her small barn. "She's intense," Marcy whispered, "like she wants to fight me or something." I shrugged, but deep down something twisted, a strange tension, like a guitar string pulled too tight. Night came fast. The desert always does that. No gentle fade, just light, then dark. The air cooled. Coyotes called in the distance, and I kept thinking about Tala's stare. What was that? Annoyance? Curiosity? Jealousy? Something else entirely. The more I tried to shake the thought, the more it dug in. I didn't even realize she'd followed me from the fence line until I heard footsteps on gravel. I turned. There she was again, closer now, standing at the edge of my porch steps like she'd been waiting for permission to speak, but refusing to ask for it. She nodded at Marcy, one scold, short, then looked at me. "You shouldn't do that," she said. Her voice was low, rough, not angry, but definitely not warm. "Do what?" I asked. She lifted her chin toward Marcy. "Kiss people in front of someone who cares." Marcy laughed, assuming Tala was joking. "Do you care?" she said. "Really?" But Tala's eyes didn't move to her. They stayed locked on me, dark and focused. "Yes," she said. The air froze. Marcy's smile slipped. My pulse jumped. I had no idea how to answer. Tala stepped closer, her boots stirring dust with each calculated step, her presence filling the porch like a storm rolling in off the mesa. "You knew," she said. "I didn't," I answered honestly. "You did," she insisted. "Not with your mind. With your body." I tried to say something, but the words tangled. Tala wasn't close to me before, not really. We'd talked about broken fences, stray dogs, the weather. It was always practical. But maybe I'd noticed the way she looked at me sometimes. Maybe I'd ignored it. Maybe I'd been pretending not to understand. Marcy looked between us and said, lightly, but with a tinge of uncertainty, "Well, if you care so much, maybe you should have said something sooner." Tala's eyes narrowed, not out of anger, but out of protective frustration, the kind wolves get when another animal steps into their territory. And then everything inside me snapped into place like a puzzle piece I didn't realize had been missing. I stepped off the porch, walked straight toward Tala, and said the line that changed everything. "If you want," I told her, "your turn next." For the first time since I'd known her, Tala's mask cracked. The stone expression melted into something fierce, surprised, electric. Her breath caught, Her lips parted like she'd been hit with a shock she hadn't prepared for. The desert wind blew across the yard, carrying dust and heat and tension all at once. Marcy gasped behind me, muttering, "Oh my God." Under her breath, Tala leaned in, not touching me, but close enough that her presence wrapped around me like heat from a fire. "You shouldn't offer things you don't understand," she whispered. "Then explain it to me," I said. Her eyes softened in a way that made the world tilt. "You're not ready," she answered, "but you will be." The rest of the night burned with a strange, heavy energy I couldn't shake. Marcy left early, uncomfortable. The desert seemed quieter than usual, and Tala, she watched from her yard for a long time, not speaking, not approaching, just waiting. But the look in her eyes told me this wasn't over, not even close. The next morning, the sun dragged me out of sleep far too early. My phone buzzed. Marcy texting from the highway, saying she'd had fun but that the vibe got too weird. Fair. I stepped outside, expecting silence, expecting time to think. But instead I found Tala leaning against my fence post like she'd been waiting for hours. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She just tilted her head for me to follow. I didn't question it. Something about her made it natural to obey without feeling controlled. She led me across the dry ground, past her corral, past the shed where she kept tack and tools, until we reached the back paddock where the land opened wide and untouched. A single horse of paint mare stood tied near the fence, calm and observant. Tala rested her hand on the mare's neck. "She doesn't like strangers," she said, "but she likes people with honest hearts." I frowned. "Are you saying mine is?" Tala gave me a long, steady look. "Yes, that's why last night." She stopped, looked away, took a breath. When she turned back, her voice was lower. "Jealousy isn't something I choose easily. But you." She hesitated again, searching for the right word. "You woke something." I stepped closer. The mare flicked her ears but didn't move away. "So what happens now?" I asked. Tala set a hand on my chest, not pushing, not pulling, just feeling the space between us. "Now," she said, "you decide if last night was a joke or a promise." I swallowed. The heat from her palms spread through me. The air felt charged again, the same way it had when I'd told her your turn next. "It wasn't a joke," I said. Her eyes darkened, not with anger, but desire wrapped in caution. "Then you need to understand something," she said. "Apache ways aren't light things. When I choose with my whole being. When I look at someone, I don't just see their face. I see what they carry inside. I see the kind of fire they hide. And last night," her thumb brushed my shirt lightly, "I saw yours." The wind picked up as if the land itself was listening. Tala stepped closer, their bodies nearly touching now. "You want your turn?" she asked. "Earn it." I blinked. "How?" She nodded toward the mare. "Win her trust. If she accepts you, then I will." That sounded insane, but Tala wasn't joking. So I moved slowly, letting the horse smell my hand, trying not to rush. Tala watched every tiny movement, her gaze never leaving me. The mare snorted, then nudged my palm. A quiet acceptance, a bond forming. Tala's breath hitched audibly. "She chose you," she whispered, something like awe slipping into her voice. She stepped close enough that her forehead nearly touched mine. "So I will too." Her hands slid behind my neck, fingers gentle but certain, and she pulled me toward her, not aggressively, but with a depth that made the world fall silent. Her lips hovered inches from mine. "Last night," she said, "you gave permission." The heat between us tightened. "And this morning," she murmured, "I take it." She kissed me, not like Marcy, not quick or playful. This was slow, deliberate, full of meaning. I didn't fully understand, but felt everywhere from my pulse to my spine. Tala's kiss was a confession, a claim, a truth spoken in a language older than either of us. When she finally pulled back, her breathing was unsteady, her eyes softer than dawn over red rock. "Now you understand," she whispered. We walked back toward the fence in silence, the kind that holds meaning instead of emptiness. When we reached the boundary between our yards, she paused. "Last night you made a challenge," she said. Today I answered. I nodded, still processing everything. Tala gave a rare, faint smile. "If you want more, don't make me jealous next time. Call me instead." She turned and walked away, her braids swinging, her steps confident in a way that told me she expected I would come find her again soon. And she was right. That night, as the desert cooled, and the sky shifted from gold to deep purple. I thought about Marcy's kiss, brief, simple, fun. But Tala's, that kiss stayed like a wildfire under the skin. A new beginning, a new storm, a new story waiting to be told. And as I looked toward her yard and saw her silhouette watching the stars, I knew this wasn't the end. It was only chapter 2 of something much bigger.